attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, hello and welcome to a very special webinar today. We're going to be talking about Douglas County Library's specific Meraki deployment. And so we're going to start off by going over an introduction to Meraki and a little bit about cloud networking for those of you who are less familiar, and then diving right into the Douglas County Library network, and we're actually going to take a look at their network as well as the Cisco Meraki network. So two different live networks today so that you can see how these solutions are deployed in a real-life scenario. And my name is Katie Lane, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Cisco Meraki, and I'll be taking you through the content today. It'll be about 50 or so minutes, and we'll also have time for Q&A at the end of this session. And I want to also point out that I have one of my colleagues here with me, Jen, and she is ready to answer your questions throughout the presentation. So definitely don't hesitate to ask those questions as soon as they come to you. You can enter those questions in the panel in GoToMeeting in the Q&A box, and she'll be able to relay those to me and also answer them right away. Also, some very exciting news. We're going to be giving out a free 802.11n access point to all of the qualified IT professionals on the line. And this comes with a 3-year cloud management license. And all that we ask is that you give us a call and confirm your shipping information. So you should have received a reminder email before the webinar today. And in that email is the contact of your Cisco Meraki rep. Go ahead and give them a call, and we'll get the access point right out to you. And if you didn't receive a reminder email, definitely don't worry. We're going to be sending one out after the webinar as well. All right, so to get started, let's talk a little bit about Cisco Meraki. So Cisco Meraki is the leader in cloud networking, and we have a complete line of products that are all managed via the cloud, from wireless access points to switches, as well as security appliances, and also mobile device management. And all of these products are very tightly integrated with our cloud services platform. And especially the hardware and software are specifically built to communicate with the cloud. We are one of the fastest growing groups within Cisco, over 500 employees worldwide within Cisco Meraki business unit, specifically within Cisco, and also growing over 100% year over year. So continuing to invest heavily in R&D. We are the, as I mentioned, the leader in cloud networking, and we've been operating in the cloud since around 2006. So we've had a lot of time to iterate over the technology and continue to bring out new products and new features to the product line. And also pretty exciting, we, more than even being recognized by other third-party organizations, but really most exciting is being trusted day in and day out by all of our customers. And here's just a few of them here, as well as Douglas County Library that we're going to be talking about specifically today. Here's some other libraries specifically, or other companies that are in that same vertical of products. So why is cloud networking a solution that you might be interested in your environment? I want to take a step back and think about some of the benefits that a cloud networking solution can bring to an enterprise network. And I like to break it down into these 3 main categories: increasing manageability, as well as scalability, and finally cost savings. And all of these are really important pillars to Cisco Meraki and the solution. Firstly, manageability, really being able to increase the visibility and the control you have over your network. That being from the installation all the way to the day in and day out management of the product line. If you come across a problem with the solution, you can, or in your network, you can very easily identify that. Even if you're remote, you can also very easily be notified of it and gain visibility into where that might be happening and troubleshoot on the spot right from the cloud. So we'll look at some of these features in the solution as well in a little bit. Also scalability, being able to grow the solution from not just one site to many sites, and being able to very easily copy those network configurations that you've already built out from one device to many devices or one site to many sites. And finally, cost savings. This really plays into all the demands that are placed on network administrators in being able to allow them to meet those demands, especially for a growing network, and being able to increase the efficiency of that IT team, essentially being able to do more with less. So we'll try to come back to some of these points as we're looking at the solution in detail in a little bit. So here is an overview of the Cisco Meraki product line. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have 4 main products. On the far left are MR wireless LAN products. These are our access points. Moving down the line, we also have Ethernet switches that come in 8-port all the way up to 48-port 10 gigabit aggregation switches. We also have security appliances, same thing ranging from a small or branch office all the way up to a large headquarter or data center solution. And then on the far right, our mobile device management platform, Systems Manager, and it's the only one of these products that is not a physical piece of hardware itself. This is for managing your end client devices like Macs or PCs or iPhones or Android devices. All of these devices can also be managed via the cloud. And what all of these products have in common is that cloud management. And that's what we're looking at the center of the screen here. This is what we call the Cisco Meraki dashboard. And you can get to this by simply navigating to dashboard.meraki.com in any browser window. You can start gaining access to your network and gaining visibility and management control over your devices from any browser. So we're really trying to change the way that you manage and monitor your network solution. So here is a overview of what's happening exactly when your devices on site are communicating to the cloud. So I mentioned that the wireless access points or switches or security appliances, they're all communicating to the cloud, and that's built into the hardware and software of the actual product. So I want to talk a little bit about what's happening when they're talking to the cloud. So we have our hardware devices that are on site, and as long as they're connected to the internet, here we have an example of a T1 line or a DSL line, or could be anything, any type of solution. As long as it's connected to the internet, these devices are going to reach out to our data centers. And we have multiple data centers around the world that are completely redundant and completely hot swap, that are completely fail-safe. So there's a hot backup of each of these networking configurations in our data centers. And as long as they're communicating to the internet, they're talking to the cloud. And they're communicating their status. They're communicating if they're up or down, if they're seeing any specific traffic on the network, and they're communicating all of these items up to our data center. And at the same time, it's important to note that we're actually only communicating management data to the cloud. So you'll see that dotted blue line, it's only about 1 kilobit per second of management data that's actually communicated to the cloud. So what's happening with the rest of that traffic? All of the actual data traffic is going directly to its destination somewhere else on the WAN, or else it'll stay locally on the LAN. So we call this an out-of-band management platform. And this is really what the Cisco Meraki solution is built on top of. And it offers several benefits for an enterprise networking company. One is that it's extremely secure because we're not actually passing any user traffic through the cloud. And as I mentioned, it's the data centers are secured by third-party security audits and daily vulnerability testing. It's also very scalable. We're not passing traffic through the cloud. So there's not a bottleneck there if you're trying to push a lot of data through. And it's also very easily to grow your network. I mentioned if you're growing from one device to 100 devices, or one site to many sites, you can very easily copy that configuration over, or else very easily grow that individual network deployment without having a lot of overhead for your IT team. And finally, it's very reliable. I mentioned there's multiple data centers, and they're fully redundant, and there is a 99.99% uptime SLA for communication to these data centers. But you might be wondering, what happens if I can't talk to the data center or to the cloud? And we've also thought about this instance as well. And what's great about the solution, it's also redundant, even if you can't, or resilient, even if you can't talk to the cloud. So the devices contain, or they retain, a local copy of their configuration on the device itself as well as in the cloud. So even if that, in this example, a T1 line or DSL connection goes down, the devices are still continuing to function. So your wireless access points can still authenticate new clients, and switches will still switch traffic and so forth until that internet connection is resumed. So this is really the overview of what's happening in the Cisco Meraki solution as you're managing devices via the cloud. And I want to spend a second to talk about some of the other benefits of a cloud management solution that might be different from a traditional networking solution. And these are those extra benefits that we're able to provide to our customers. And we continually update the products and bring out new features and new solutions. And one of the things we do is a software as a service feature delivery in the form of quarterly updates. And so here's an example of just a few of the features that we've been able to bring out to our existing customers. Even if they've already purchased the product years ago, we're able to continue to bring out these new features. And I got one question I wanted to go ahead and address as we're moving along. Back on this slide, someone had asked, what happens, or sorry, how long will the devices function if they don't have a connection to the cloud? Great question. So they'll continue to function as long, indefinitely, in fact. So as long as they have a license to function, they'll continue to function. And as soon as that internet connection is resumed, they'll be able to communicate what was happening during that time to the cloud. So they have a pretty good amount of memory on the devices themselves. And it's just for this purpose. For instance, if the internet connection goes down, we want to be able to store the data from what those devices are seeing so that when the connection to the cloud is resumed, they can update the cloud on what's been happening. And a question about what is the minimum WAN bandwidth required for management. And so this is also on this slide as well. The average communication from the device to the cloud is around 1 kilobit per second. And I say that's an average because this includes the cases where, for instance, maybe there's a firmware download happening. They're downloading new software for these devices from the cloud. And also, it's going to be much lower than that in just regular day-to-day usage, where they're just sending brief updates to the cloud on what's happening. So it's an average of 1 kilobit per second per device. And so we don't necessarily have a minimum WAN bandwidth required, but for optimal usage, we want probably more than this and I imagine you will have more than 1 kilobit per second for your WAN connection. We try to keep that bandwidth required for the devices very low, and we spend a lot of time making sure that as we're communicating to the cloud, we're aggregating information so that we're not taking up a lot of throughput to communicate to the cloud. All right, so at this time, I'm actually going to wait 1 second on this. I want to give you a brief demo of our Cisco Meraki network, and then we're going to talk specifically about the Douglas County Library Network. So I'll make sure that I'm still logged in here. As I mentioned, I simply log in via browser. Let's see. I was just logged in. For some reason, it is not liking my password here. All right. And we do have two-factor authentication as well. And I entered that earlier and it had it saved for the next day, so I don't have to re-enter that password, but you can have it sent to you a text message as you're logging in. And also on the security front, you can also limit the IP address range of where devices can log in from. So you can, for instance, have it limited to only devices that are connected within your specific site or your specific IP address ranges, and only allow devices connected from there to log into the dashboard as well. So you can really lock this down pretty well. So here I am now in our Cisco Meraki network, and what we're looking at right now is what I mentioned was called the dashboard. And I'm simply logged in via a browser, and I'm looking at right now an overview of all of our Cisco Meraki offices. And here I can see I'm looking at about 47 different networks right now. And these are a range of wireless networks, teleworker networks, systems manager networks. And I can expand this out to get a summary of all of these networks. For instance, I can sort by my networks that are experiencing the top usage, and our Meraki core network, which is the office I'm in right now in San Francisco, is definitely topping the charts here, 22 terabits over the last week. Also our MS engineering network, this is our switch network here on site as well. We do have a lot of testing in. It's pretty high up there. So all of these networks we can jump into from right here in the dashboard and start managing individually. So I'm going to click on our Meraki Corp network. And now I'm brought to the client overview page for this network. And you'll see that the tab on the left changed. From here, I can very easily manage the security appliance that's on site on this network, as well as the switches and the wireless access points on site. So right now, I'm taking a look at all of the clients that have connected to this network over the last day. And we can change this top menu to take a look at all of our access point clients over the last day or even the last week. And now it'll give us an overview of what that traffic looked like, the usage looked like over the last week. And here we can also see all of the information about individual clients in our network. Here I can see we have 737 clients that have connected to an access point this week. And I can see all the information about these clients. And what's exciting about this is that you'll see here that we've actually learned quite a bit about these clients. All of the Cisco Meraki devices do something called client fingerprinting, where they learn about the devices that are connecting or passing traffic through them. And so here I can click on any one of these clients and find out everything that we've learned about this one particular client. I can see what we're guessing is the host name here based on the 802.1x login information. We're also learning about what type of device this is. Here we have a Windows 7 device, and also our 802.11n capabilities here. And I can also see the usage specifically for this client, and also which applications they've been using. So we're actually doing a Layer 7 deep packet inspection right at the access point level to gain this data. And here I can see where this device is located on the map in relation to the other access points on site, which access point it's connected to. So it's a pretty broad overview of everything that we've learned about this device. And we can get the same information for all of the clients in the network, as well as application information for all of the clients in our network. So here we can take a look at what are the applications that are most utilized in our network. And this is once again using that Layer 7 traffic shaping information in order to gain information about, oops, sorry, I think we're having a bit of feedback here. Okay, to gain information about what types of traffic are being used on the network. All right, so here we can see which applications are most utilized, and I'll see WebEx as well as Spotify and Google, and also ESPN are some of our top used applications. And I can click into any one of these applications. Here we can take a look at just ESPN traffic for a second and see all of those users who are most utilizing the ESPN traffic. All right, so at this time, let's go ahead and see if we have, we can take a look at our Douglas County Library network. And let's start talking an overview of this network. And I think I actually have Monique on the line. Monique, are you here?
I am.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today. Monique is the IT director at Douglas County Libraries, and she was gracious enough to come join us today and talk to us a little bit about her specific networking deployment. Monique, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Monique Sendze, and I'm the IT director here at Douglas County Libraries. I have been the IT director here for about, this is my 6th year. And prior to Douglas County Libraries, I was at Johnson County in Kansas. And there as well, I also ran a Meraki wireless network. So I'm very familiar with Meraki. And I currently manage a team of about 17 people right now here, made of systems engineers, desktop support, web administrators, and infrastructure folks. And so I'll be here to take any questions once Jen is done with the presentation.
Sure. So yeah, we'll walk through your specific deployment together. And so here is a brief overview of the Douglas County Library Network. So you have about 7 different libraries that you manage. Can you talk to us a little bit about the deployment and the users that you're serving with the network?
Sure. So Douglas County Libraries has a population, Douglas County as a whole has a population of about 300,000 people. And we have 7 libraries spread out in the county. And we are located about 35 miles south of Denver. And we're a very busy library system compared to libraries our size in the United States, and we actually move about 8 million items a year, and that includes books, magazines, DVDs, ebooks, audiobooks, you name it. Our current deployment right now consists of a variety of different things. But prior to moving to Meraki for our wireless network, we had a legacy 3Com system. And it was an 802.11a access point. And it was so old, we did not even have the ability to manage the access point in a way like we do today with the Meraki, and the coverage was horrible. So we started with our deployment process, and we used a Meraki tool to actually do a site survey. And we took that tool that Meraki developed just right about when we were rolling out our deployment. And we went to all the locations, walked around the buildings, and actually drew out a map to figure out where we were going to place the access points to get the kind of coverage that we felt we needed with our users. And so we ended up with a mixed deployment of both indoor and outdoor access points. The reason why we do outdoor access points is because we host a lot of events outside of our buildings. And in our parking lots, we have community events very often in those areas, in parks, because some of our libraries adjourn are really next to parks and things like that. And so there is a lot of community activities that happen with the library being the anchor for those events. And so we felt like having a combination of both indoor and outdoor access points will solve our community needs better.
Great. All right, so thanks so much for that overview. So you were able to deploy the access points as well as MX Security Appliance. So let's first talk about your access points. You have some staff that need to access the wireless network as well as public access. Can you talk us through how you've set those up and the different requirements for each of those user groups?
Sure. So with our public access, we just have an open access point because we really wanted the experience for the users to be, it's a true guest wireless network. And so it's open access, and then for protection and security, that's where we're using the MX security devices to then manage rogue DNS, and we're putting in some layer 7 firewall rules to deny certain access, and we are also using the MX Security Appliance to do malware scanning and some of those things that come in built-in, and firewall blocking. And we also do content filtering, because as a library that receives federal government funding, we are required to comply with steeper regulations, and so we do some content filtering there as well. And so that's the public access. Patrons come in and they just tether to the network and they are off, and those rules that we have just apply. Then on the secure inside network staff access, we have them connecting through a private network, through a VLAN, and then we're using 802.11x with radius authentication so that we can pass through our Active Directory credentials to log on to the network. And again, because it's staff and it's internal, we have no bandwidth limits. But we use it for application sharing, file sharing, and just business type BYOD, because we also have a BYOD solution for our staff where they can actually bring in their own devices and have access to the enterprise network. And so they would use that secure wireless network to get on and do their work as if they were connected to the enterprise wired network.
Great, great. Thanks for walking us through that. Maybe now is a good time to actually take a look at your network live here, and maybe you can walk us through your deployment in the dashboard. If I can log in again. Sorry, I keep getting timed out here. All right. So here is your network deployment. Are you looking at the screen right now, Monique?
I am.
Oh, all right, great. So can you maybe choose a wireless network that we could jump into and take a look at some of those settings that you've just talked us through?
We might look at, so the one thing I need to point out about our deployment is that we use the same SSID. So all of our public networks have the same SSID. So we don't break the SSIDs out by location. It's like if you are in a Parker library or Highlands library or a Lone Tree library, the SSID is the same. We just did, because we have users that move from location to location, and so we just wanted it to be really seamless for them, and so we just made the SSID for all of the networks the same on the public side. So you can pick maybe you can pick that one. That's fine.
This one?
Anyone.
Okay.
All of them are the same.
Okay. All right, great. So let's see. Oh, this is your firewall?
Yeah. So
okay, great.
Yeah. So why don't we change it? Change to high. So that one. The next. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
if you this is the firewall settings, because one thing, the way we have this deployment for the public setup is they are on a separate connection. So we are not even using a VLAN connection for them off of our enterprise WAN. We have 2 DSLs at 20 meg each that's bonded, so it makes a 40 meg connection, and that's where that's how the users come in. So we are physically separating our public wireless users from our enterprise network, and so that's why we had to use the security appliance to then do some of the filtering and security and things like that.
Got it.
So,
got it.
Yeah, so that's why it's looking this way, but it's completely separate from our enterprise network, just so people don't get confused. And then go to that one.
Okay.
If you go to DCL public, then you would see all of the access points. And you would see, and right up there you get a quick snapshot. You can see that you've already had 1,275 clients on the network, and you can see it's giving you live shots there and telling you, the green spots on the map is actually telling you real time how many clients we have now at each of those sites.
Busy day.
It's a busy day. And this is where we have most of our outdoor access points. And this location that you're showing down here that says South Wilcox Street, we actually have four networks there, and you can see it's like all of these people around the same place. So we have businesses around this library, and that's an outdoor access point that you just clicked on. So that's probably one of the ones that's in the gazebo. Quite frankly, it is a very, very highly used network around the area. So we've got businesses right in front of South Wilcox Street here that actually use those. We've got businesses that are to the south of our parking lots that are using the network. And so it's really a big community resource that we're offering the community, even though it is being provided through the library, but it is serving the community around us as well as our patrons that actually walk into our buildings.
Great. All right. So thanks so much for that overview. Yeah, I can see you guys are very busy. I clicked on this marker icon over here, and I can navigate between how many current clients are connected and which access point type. So now I'm looking at, here I can see you have some OD2s, which are outdoor access points, as well as the MR16s inside, and definitely a ton of traffic flowing through these devices, and a lot of users.
Yes, if we go down for 10 minutes, I hear about it.
Oh wow!
So it's a vital service for our community, because, and what they tell us is that our wireless access network is one of the best in the county. So people really, I mean, we get phone calls that say, hey, my Comcast is out, is wireless working at the library. You know, my call center gets those calls all the time, and people would just, you know, come into the library and hang out. And if you went in and looked at our presence analytics, it's sort of interesting to, you know, to see how many people are frequent visitors and how many people just, you know, pass by, and those are some really pretty good statistics to look at.
Excellent. So, we're going to talk about that specifically in a second. But let's just take a look at your SSIDs that you have configured, because I know we talked about these just a second ago. Here we have the overview of the SSIDs that you have configured, and I can click into the access control and take a look specifically at your any of these SSIDs that you have configured. Is this your public SSID?
That's the public one. The wireless division library support is the public one.
Excellent. So yeah, just like you said, it's open. You don't have a splash page configured here right now, but you could. And then you have this in NAT mode, which means that the access point is going to be passing out an IP address instead of using an upstream DHCP server. So the nice thing about NAT mode with the Meraki access points is that the clients can't communicate with each other. And so this is segmenting them from each other, and then you can simply tack on a firewall rule so that they don't have access to the rest of your network. And I imagine that's what you have here in your firewall and traffic shaping rules. Great. So here we have the firewall and traffic shaping settings for your public SSID. Do you want to walk us through what you've configured here?
So basically, again, this is the firewall and traffic shaping, and on this one, so which network are you on? I can't even. Okay.
Oh, sorry. This is your public Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So here, this is just because again, like I said, this one here that's the IP address of the DSL box that we have, and so we are blocking all of those rogue DNS. It's really very simple because again, it's a public network. We have very little, and then we are blocking peer-to-peer because the cable company, this one is Comcast, requires that we do that. If not, they're gonna kind of throttle our bandwidth. So this is just very simple, and I can add as many layer 7 firewall rules. And the thing to note is that there is an overarching rule, but then I can get into each site and add specific things that would apply just to that site. And so here is just the general security settings for the firewall and traffic shaping. The only thing we're doing with traffic shaping, we're not really, the only thing we're throttling with traffic shaping is peer-to-peer. That's it.
Got it. So what you're doing here, these are the rules specifically for the access points, and you also you have specific rules at the firewall that's on each site. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Great. So I like how you've done that. So here you can go into the firewall for any of these sites and look at the other rules that you've configured.
That's correct.
So, great. So here we can look at the MX Security Appliance at this other site.
Correct.
And then we can take a look at any firewall rules that you have configured here. And here you have several that are specific now to this site, as well as you mentioned some content filtering as well.
Yes.
So you're doing that. Okay, and so here we can take a look at that content filtering that you have configured at this one firewall.
Correct.
Great. All right. So let's jump back to our slides here and talk through a few of the other things that you've configured. We actually already talked a little bit about the MX Security Appliance and how you're using that for malware. Are you also using that for IPS, for intrusion prevention?
We are. We're using the integrated source fire not intrusion prevention tool, and that's really cool.
Great, great.
I have that turned on.
All right, so we can take a look at that as well here. You can go to Monitor and take a look at the security report. And this is going to be all the data that is aggregated from what's happening with your snort settings. So here we can see if there are any alerts that have occurred, and then exactly what those are based on the signature. So very easily identify those in the network. Okay. So as far as the layer 7 visibility, this is something that we looked at in the Meraki network. Are you able to utilize the layer 7 application visibility to maybe identify if there are any outlying scenarios or users that are really hogging a lot of bandwidth in your network?
Yeah, we do, and there are times where I block users because I can tell that I can see their device and I can block them, and I've done that before. I've done that a couple of times. We try not to really intrude on users that way because, again, the nature of our organization. But you know, I would look at this, and people would call and complain that the network is slow, and we'll just get in there, we'll look, and then we will see this one user that's downloading all these things from YouTube and is hogging all of the bandwidth, and we will just block them and let the rest of the people enjoy what they're here for. So, and then, you know, once then we will take out the block again because it's just those things that happen every now and then where it's causing degradation, and we don't want to block them forever. We just want to make sure that their activity for that day is not affecting other users on the network, and so we'll just block them out for that day, and then we would release it again, and then, you know, sometimes they will call, and when they find out, they're like, well, I'm not able to, and then they will let us know, and we'll let them know that that's because they were affecting other users on the network, and then it just works that way, and then they'll be like, oh, okay.
Great. Yeah. Here we're looking at all the clients that have connected to your public Wi-Fi, and you definitely have a lot of traffic, 329 gigabytes over the last week. And here you can see your top users, some of them, 12 gigabytes here, 5 gigabytes, 3 gigabytes. So a lot of traffic these users are pushing through the network. So if you wanted to block someone, you could simply click on that device and you can block them right here in the dashboard on an individual.
And you can send them a message.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, too much YouTube.
I know. Yep.
And so very easy to go ahead and block those users. And also you can apply a group policy if you wanted to specifically. So if you wanted to, instead of completely blocking them, maybe you could just throttle their bandwidth so that they aren't using up too much bandwidth and really inhibiting the other users on the network. So a lot of options here for those specific users. Whoops. All right. So something you mentioned earlier that I really want to spend a little time talking about is the presence analytics with CMX. And so this is where we're able to use the access points to understand how many people are passing by the library, how many visitors you have that are staying near the library. And we're able to do this just by listening to people's Wi-Fi devices as they're carrying them around. So we can take a look at this right in the dashboard. Whoops, sorry, navigating incorrectly here. And so we can go take a look at your presence data. And let's see, here we have your location analytics tab for your public network. And would you like to talk us through how you're using this data, Monique?
So the way I started using it is it's amazing. It's funny how I started using this, but we're using it for other things now. But the way this started was traditionally in my organization, wireless access has been always considered as a complementary service, which means that it was not a mission critical service where if it's down, I have all these SLAs like I do have with my critical services. But we were finding that more and more the wireless was becoming very critical, and we had no idea as to how many people it was impacting and why it was so critical. And so we started looking at our presence analytics to really see how people are using it and what is the frequency, what is the engagement, and who are our loyal customers. If I take this service down, how many people am I affecting? And this was very revealing. So it was a really good tool for IT to really then say, okay, we need to put in a different kind of SLA for the wireless service because obviously it is a very highly used service and it impacts quite a lot of customers. And so that was one way for us to then go back and say, okay, we need to redo this SLA and try to bump this up into a higher level of service. That's number one. Number two is the branches always told us that when we didn't have, when the wireless service was down, it affected the business. So it affected foot traffic because people were coming into the library first to do wireless, and then while they're in the library, they check out materials, so it's that whole serendipity thing. I'm in for something else, and then I get something else. And so the branches were really feeling like their services were being affected because wireless was down because of the number of people that walked in daily, weekly into the libraries just to use the wireless that ended up then, borrowing materials. And we could bear that with this data to say, okay, it's really true because we could take this and overlay it onto our foot traffic statistics, and we could find that there was a correlation when wireless was done at the location that the foot traffic actually also dramatically went down. And so we really started to use this to assess how we could then use our wireless service to drive circulation, which is the bread and butter for libraries. Is the more materials we move, the better. That is a very high KPI to report to the states for how many materials, and it helps with some of the justification for your budgets and things like that. And so it was quite crucial the way we used it. And then our marketing team is also talking now about using this as well to push marketing information to users as they are in the library, because they know which ones are occasional users, they know which ones are really loyal users, and then they're talking about actually doing some promotional kinds of things to those people that are loyal users and try to steer them towards some of our other products and services.
Great, great. That's pretty powerful to be able to use your network to drive drive your initiatives internally and also justification for funding. So that's very cool.
Yep.
I want to talk some people through some of the graphs that we're looking at here. I got a question. Can you define the difference between passerby and visitor and connected? And this top graph here is actually exactly that. Here we're able to take a look at how many people have passed by the wireless, and how we're determining this number is using the access point to listen for Wi-Fi probe requests and to count those users. So it's a glorified people counter in a way, but here we can simply see how many people are walking by the library, and if they stay around for a certain amount of time or they have a signal strength that is beyond a certain threshold, then we'll be able to classify that user as a visitor versus a passerby. So that's where we're getting these first two numbers. And then finally, connected means that these users are also connected to the wireless network. So 1,500 users connected to this network and over 9,000 passerbys. And so here we can use this data to help determine how many people we're capturing that are passing by, and also determine trends and help understand if any of your external marketing is effective in converting more of those passerbys to visitors and also having them connect to the network, use the library resources, and then effectively increase the foot traffic within the library itself. So that's what we're taking a look at here. The next graph here is engagement. So this is how long users are sticking around in the library. And here you have a bunch of users who are 6+ hours in the library. And then finally, the loyalty. Here you have a lot of users who are weekly visitors or even daily visitors, and then a number that are first-time visitors as well. So you're talking about being able to reward those visitors who are loyal to the library and being able to get that data with the analytics here. So very cool. So just kind of summarizing some of the points that Monique had previously mentioned, being able to understand those passerbys and also convert them to library users, and also being able to use this data as justification upstream. It's really extending the value of IT beyond just that of the wireless service. All right, so tons of happy customers. Here's some quotes from some of your guests, Monique, and it sounds like you're doing an awesome job in providing this service for the library. And I want to encourage any of the people on the line, if you have any questions for myself or Monique, we'll be definitely happy to address those. So go ahead and put those in the Q&A box in GoToMeeting. And as we are waiting for some of those questions to come in, I want to talk through a couple final points here. Here we are taking a look at mini Cisco Meraki devices, and I want to point out that as you're going to be getting the free AP, we're also going to be sending out that access point, but also we do free trials for any of the other products that we've talked about today. And these are free shipping both ways, no risk at all to try. And here is an overview of those products. Here we have our wireless access points. Let's see, I'm going to try to cut down on some of this feedback here just briefly. Our MR wireless access points, we have several models from indoor to outdoor, as Monique mentioned, using the outdoor access points. And these come from 11N all the way up to our 11AC models as well. Here we have our MR34, and this is our 11AC access point specifically, and a bunch of neat features in this product line as well as all of the features we've looked at today. This also has a dedicated security radio specifically for taking a look at rogue SSIDs and rogue access points and being able to secure the environment as well as optimizing the RF environment. So using this other radio to determine the best channel and power level in real time for the access points, so you have peak performance for all of your devices. Here's a MX Security Appliance, And these are those devices that Monique is using at each of her sites for content filtering, as well as firewall and IDS and IPS. And finally, our MS access and aggregation switches. And once again, these are all the way from the 8-port model right at the top of that stack, all the way up to a 10 gigabit 48-port switch. And these are PoE, PoE Plus capable, all sorts of neat features like remote packet capture and cable testing built right into the device, which you can access via the dashboard as well. And finally, Systems Manager. This is our mobile device management platform, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, and it can be used for managing iOS devices, Android devices, Macs, and PCs. And this is our only product that's not a physical piece of hardware itself. It is software-based, and it is also 100% free, so free to try and use for your organization. So I encourage you to check it out at meraki.cisco.com/SM, and you can start managing your own devices. So let's see if I can address any questions either for myself or for Monique. A question about, can you use content filtering without the MX, and if so, how is it administered? So you can use some content filtering right in the access point settings, and this is used, well, you can turn it on in the configure and access control page. If you're in NAT mode, you can turn on adult content filtering, or you can, block specific custom DNS. But for any other granular content filtering, you need to have an MX Security Appliance. All right, a question about how do you get the free AP? So call your Cisco Meraki rep. A question about price points and also how the subscription works. So all of the devices need a subscription, and we call this a cloud management license. And let's see. So the cloud management license can be purchased when you purchase the device, and they come in 1, 3, 5, 7, or 10-year licenses, and this gives you access to the cloud as well as firmware updates and support, and also a lifetime warranty. A question about the presentation, and can you have access to it afterwards? And the answer is yes. You'll be able to access the presentation and a recording by going to meraki.com/webinars. And this is probably where you signed up for the webinar. But if you scroll down to the bottom of this screen, you'll see a list of previously recorded webinars. You can click on any one of these and gain access to that webinar, as well as a recording of the slides, or a handout of the slides. A question for you, Monique. Does the library provide any digital content delivery services, and have you tried to integrate or highlight them with your public Wi-Fi?
The answer to that is yes. We actually do have a splash screen that comes up, that we put up, that actually has almost like a digital signage type of thing. So we have a few widgets that was nicely designed for digital content. And so we pushed that out to users. But the feedback we got was that the users didn't like that every time they connected, they got presented with that splash screen. But we do have it. And so what we then did was we changed it to where you don't get to see the splash screen every time you log in. You get to see it once a week. So for those people that are repeat customers, those were the people that were really complaining about it, because every day they came in, they had to to see that splash screen before they got redirected to the open internet. And so yes, we do that, and we do try to promote our digital content and access so that if someone is connected to the network, it's that browsing and serendipity thing again that I kept talking about. They may not even know that we offer digital services, and so that's an opportunity for them to say, oh, the library has this. So we present them with some sort of a Netflix-like display of titles that are available for them to check out.
Great. All right, cool. We're getting a ton of questions, and we're running out of time. I'll try to answer a couple of them here. Question about someone is using Chromebooks in their solution, and they have many branches, and they'd like to understand how to compile stats. There's one way you can do this, and this is through the Traffic Analytics tab. And here we can take a look at the overview of the clients, and you can simply search for a specific device type. So I can search for Windows, and here we have information now about all of the Windows clients, and you can download these via CSV or XML file, and then if you have multiple sites, you can combine those CSV and XML files. A question for you, Monique, does the library offer printing off of the public network?
We do.
Great, all right. Let's see. A question about, Monique, when you set up your splash page, is it daily or weekly, or how do you have this set up?
So initially we set it up for daily. Actually, every time you logged into the network, it would display. But then we switched it to where it was weekly.
Okay. Great. Someone asked another question, is there a feature to automatically receive reports via email? Absolutely. Here we can go to a summary report, and here you can take a look at this report, or customize another report, and here we can email this report to a specific user. And you can also receive email notifications if something happens in the network. For instance, if a device goes down, as Monique mentioned, you definitely would want to be notified in your scenario, because you'll probably be hearing about it in 10 minutes or so anyway if users can't connect to the wireless network.
And the nice thing is there is an app, and I use that app so very much because I have my app on my phone, so I also get notifications if something happens. If I am not in the office or something, and I always have my phone, I use the Meraki app. So I would encourage people to really check that app out. It's very, very useful.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Monique. And with that, I think we're about out of time. Unfortunately, we weren't able to answer all the questions, but keep sending those in, and we will hopefully be able to direct them to your sales rep. Monique, thank you so much for joining and sharing all of your knowledge with us, and thanks everyone for joining.
My pleasure.
All right, thanks, Monique.